Hi, hello. Welcome back to Myself on Purpose. I'm the host, Daria, and this is session 4. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about self esteem and self worth. One day, not today, I will stop giving this disclaimer. But I recognize that we're still getting to know each other. So it's okay to reiterate that the thoughts that I'm sharing today on self esteem and self worth, these are my thoughts, that are coming from my own experiences. So it's likely that your experiences are different than mine, and that the way you think about self esteem and self worth differ from the way I do. And that's totally fine. There is room enough for both to exist at the same time. So I will invite you, as I typically do, to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Okay? Cool. So a while back, I was invited to be a guest on another podcast. And the topic of discussion was to be this self-esteem and self-worth. So that guest appearance, that interview didn't really come to fruition. And I thought, well, I'd already invested some time and some energy into developing some thoughts about these two concepts. So I figured I'd share them still and not let all of that time and effort go to waste. So here we are. I'm going to share my thoughts on these here on my own platform. So to start, I guess I would probably take the prefix self and just put a pin in it for a second and just focus on worth and esteem. Starting with esteem, when we think about the etymology of esteem, right? Rooted from estimate, it's a guess, right? It's calculated from related, contributing, otherwise relevant factors, right? And those factors can be internal, they can be external, they can be conditional, they can be circumstantial, they can be a lot of things, right? The point is, an estimate is dependent. And because of that, estimates in my mind can be volatile, right? They can be easily influenced, they can waver. Okay. So esteem, estimate. Hold that thought. On the other hand, we've got worth, right? And the etymology of worth, if we think about it, rooted from value or merit. It's not a guess. It's not an estimate, right? It's exact. And it remains no matter conditions. It's unconditional, right? Nothing you do influences or changes it. It's independent. And so unlike self-esteem, right? Or esteem, worth isn't derived. It just is. Okay, now circling back to the prefix self, right? When added to both of these words, I don't believe that self is about where it comes from, where the estimate or the merit comes from. I believe that self indicates what they're regarding, which is you, yourself, right? And so follow along with me. I'm almost there. Therefore, we get self-esteem being an estimate regarding you, and self-worth being the value regarding you. And that's kind of the terminology that I think about. That's how I think about the terminology of both of those, right? So outside of the terminology, then, Daria, what do they mean functionally? Well, for me, self-esteem is kind of like the sun. I know it's a stretch. Just, I promise I'm going to explain. And hopefully it makes sense. I can't promise that it will make sense, but I am going to explain. So the sun Sometimes it's there and it's bright, right? Sometimes it's sort of in the background and not as bright or as noticeable. Sometimes it isn't there, it's gone, right? And in that way, in those ways, self-esteem is kind of like the sun for me. Again, it's dependent on things, right? And we allow so much to dictate it, our self-esteem, I mean, that it's not trustworthy. It's imposterous, you know? Self-esteem is like an illusion that the ego creates, right? The ego is creating this illusion that the estimate of yourself is high or low or somewhere in between, based on anything really. It could be based on our mood. It could be based on like our perception of failure and success. It could be based on the baggage we're carrying about maybe commitments we have or haven't followed through on. It could be based on what someone said to us recently. It could be based on the commercial we just watched, right? Truly, it can be based on anything. And to be honest, I don't think based on where I am right now in my life, I don't think that self-esteem is a worthy investment of my energy. That may not be the case for you, but that's kind of where I am, right? I see it as a distraction, sort of. The purpose it serves is not in the vibrational realm that I want to be in and that I want to be operating from. Instead, it feeds the ego. And my highest self, which is where I want to be operating from, isn't the ego, right? So is it a worthy investment for me to feed the ego? Not where I am right now. That's not to say, right, that self-esteem is not relevant or meaningful or important or any of those things. I'm just saying based on where I am in my life, right? And if you listen to the last episode about energy budgets, right? You get to a point where you got to determine, you got to pick and choose about where you would spend that budget. And for me, if it's out of esteem and worth, I'm gonna put my money into some worth, right? Not that I'm increasing the value, but I'm not increasing the worth, right? I'll come back to that. But that's where I'm going to put my focus around my worth, right? Yeah. So that brings us to self-worth, right? If self-esteem is kind of like the sun, self-worth is sort of like the moon for me. And by that, I mean, it's always there, right? Even when there's something else that may be brighter or bigger, it's still always there. No matter what else is going on, the moon is there. Self-worth is there, right? It's constant. And that to me is where my energy is better spent at this point in my life. So I'll probably spend the greater part of this session talking about self-worth because this is an energetic investment for me. So here we are. I'm demonstrating, right? I'm practicing what I preach. So self-worth, as as cliche as it might sound, you're worthy. You are worthy. We're all worthy. Nothing that we do or don't do changes that. That is a fact. Don't let anybody else convince you otherwise. Please don't let anyone else convince you otherwise. Your worth can't be measured. It can't be quantified because it's infinite. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's a different story, right? Totally different story. But that's what I believe that the journey of self-worth is truly about. It's about recognizing, right? Recognizing, meaning do again, cognize meaning to know or become aware of. I think Derek Grant says it that way, and it's so beautiful. So I try coming back to that as much as I can. But The journey of self-worth is about recognizing that you are already enough. You have always been enough. You will always be enough for that value. You don't have to do anything. Remember the etymology? It just is. Value, merit, just is. But we're human. I can only speak for myself. It's been a very normal thing for me to experience doubt still, right? On my journey as I become to know and recognize my worth. And even after I've done substantial work, very normal for doubt to creep in. I have seasons of doubt still. But I think there's information there, valuable, powerful information. Anytime that doubt around self-worth creeps in, I think it's telling us that there's a wound that needs tending to. And you should. You should tend to it. You should heal it. That's how we get back to this place of knowing. When there's a wound, a fracture there, it's blocking our view of our wholeness, right? And therefore, it's blocking our view of our value, of our worth. So fix it. I don't know if you can relate to this, but there have been times, throughout life where I have a phone and like my screen is cracked or my lens has a little crack in it. And I'll be in the midst of like a really beautiful moment that I want to capture. And for whatever reason, this fracture, this crack that I can see convinces me, right, that if I use this lens or this device to capture this moment, it won't be beautiful. Even though I'm here live in the flesh, I know it's beautiful, right? Just seeing that fracture, seeing that crack convinces me otherwise. And so I have often done this whenever I've had like a crack in my screen or something. I'll turn to a friend that I'm with or something and I'll say, can we use your phone? Mine is cracked. And it's like, girl, why does that matter? And so that's just a thought that came up as I was thinking about this is like, yeah, when there is a fracture in our mind, in our life, right? It can convince us, it can create this illusion that something that we know to be true isn't true, or it's different, right? It's not what we think it is. It's not what we know it to be. Just because of a little fracture. You know what I mean? So if there's anything causing a distortion in how you feel about your self-worth or what you know about it and what you recognize about it, deal with that. Deal with that. If it is impacting how you see yourself, deal with it almost immediately. That's some of the best information you can have, right? That's a huge opportunity. So it serves a purpose. It isn't just bubbling up for no reason, right? I've come to learn, I've come to believe that it's important for me to trust that everything happens because it's supposed to. Everything happens because it's supposed to. So sit with it. Don't run. Don't hide. I don't even think that works anyway. But sit with it and address it. Let's say you're convinced, right? You're convinced that self-worth is probably where we need to be investing a bit more time and energy. How do we increase it? You can't. Circling back to what I said earlier, right? Nothing you do influences or changes it. It isn't an estimate. It just is. It's not derived or calculated. It just is. And so try to unlearn this idea that self-worth is a bar that we can raise, right? And instead, try to train your mind to think of it as something you can learn more about, right? Something you can realize more, something you can increase your awareness of, right? So you can become more aware of your self-worth. You can realize it more. You can recognize it more, but you can't increase it. It's infinite, remember? So how do we increase our awareness? Well, I love this. Someone said this, so I'll share it here because I really love the idea. How do we increase our awareness? You remove the things that tell you you're not worthy. Woof. Yeah. Remove the things that tell you you're not worthy. The language, the thoughts, the values, the goals, the beliefs, the environments, the people, the focus, all of it. Remove the things that tell you you are not worthy, and you will increase your awareness of self-worth. Do that and you got it. Not that it's something that has to be done once, right? Remember, I mean, from my own experience, it's kind of a journey I'm always on, no matter what, right? I can always come to recognize it more. I can always become a little bit more aware of it. I can always learn more about it, right? And become more knowledgeable of my self-worth, right? Realize it more. And there may be moments where you feel like you kind of backtrack, right? Doubt creeps in or just whatever, right? And so this is probably something that you'll have to continue to do, right? Is increase your awareness of self-worth. And sometimes it's just doing the steps over again. Some of the things that have helped me, some of the practices that have helped me do just that are you've definitely probably heard me say this before, and I will keep saying it because I cannot stress enough how pivotal of a practice this has been for every part of my life, really. But scheduling regular alone time, right? Scheduling regular alone time. Another practice that's helped me tremendously here is digital fasting. Take a beat. Take a beat. Take a beat. You ain't missing nothing. For real. And healing my wounds, whatever that may look like for you, you know? But heal them, right? When you become aware, when there's a spot that's touched and it's a little, ooh, you feel it, ouch. Heal it. Heal it. Each of these, I kind of think about them as like they're tools in a toolbox, right? So the same way that if something around the house would break, right, or need a quick repair, go to the garage and get the toolbox, break it out and say, which tool do I need to use right now to help repair? And so the more tools you can pile in that toolbox for when the dark moments come, you know, as it pertains to self-worth, I think the better. But these are just three that help me that I have in my toolbox. And I think the theme between them all is that they really help me to create and maintain my own idea of who I am, right? It kind of silences all the external voices and influences out in the world that are trying to tell me about me. You know what I mean? So these are things that I can practice to kind of silence that voice, create my own idea of who I am, right? Maintain my own idea of who I am. And that really tremendously helps me to realize more my value and my worth. And that's something, those are things coming from within, right? So So yeah, I mean that's the quick and dirty, I guess, about how I have made sense of like self-esteem and self-worth. And I don't want anyone to be misled. I am by no means, advocating that self-esteem is useless. Don't put your energy there at all. It, even though it is heavily externally influenced, it can be a very real thing, and it can have real life impacts. So, um, do what's best for you. Again, I'm just sharing from my experience where I am right now. If I got whatever's in my budget and I'm investing in esteem or worth, where I am right now, I'm putting my money into investing in increasing my awareness of self-worth, right? But do what makes sense for you. This is the way that I think about these things. I'm happy to chat more again. So, um, if you want to hit me up on socials, you can always contact me on Instagram at myself on purpose pod, and yeah, we can chat it up. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I hope that you'll join me again soon. Until next time, whatever you do, do it on purpose.